Good afternoon. Thank you for joining me on Business This Week on ITV. I am Blessing AJ. Sincere apologies for bringing the show behind schedule. Today we'll be looking at digital infrastructure because the world is going digital. So want to know how it can help businesses or how it has been helping businesses. Also, we will be looking at offshore banking. Ever heard of that before? All of that you will get to know and understand later on the show when we'll begin to talk business. Now let's bring you a roundup of business activities for the week in a bit. On Business Roundup, the Securities and Exchange Commission has said it recognizes the importance of digital platforms for democratizing access to capital market products and services for greater financial inclusion in the market. The Director General of the SEC, Mr. Lamido Yuguda, said this at a webinar organized by the Commission with the theme, Digital Platforms, New Frontier for Capital Market Inclusion. Yuguda, who was represented by the Executive Commissioner, Legal and Enforcement, Mr. Reginald Karawusa, said as the apex regulator of the Nigerian capital market, with a dual mandate to regulate and develop the market, it recognizes that the greatest asset of any capital market and indeed any financial market is its investors. According to him, in the Enhancing Finance in Africa 2020 report on the Nigerian fintech landscape, about 40% of Nigerians were still financially excluded as of December 2018. 51.1% of the excluded population are women, 61.5% are between the ages of 18 and 35, 34% had no formal education, and 80.4% resided in rural areas. Yuguda said this meant that 40% of Nigerians financially excluded, especially those between the ages of 18 and 35, were also excluded from participation in the Nigerian capital markets. According to him, the capital market as part of the fintech ecosystem is witnessing changes in the conduct of market activities with the emergence of digital platforms which provide wide-scale, cost-effective and efficient solution for inclusion of potential investors in the capital market, especially the younger population. Yuguda added that since 2018, the Commission has been engaging stakeholders within the space to develop an efficient regulatory framework that will mandate responsible digital financial practices to protect investors or consumers. Meanwhile, the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, has directed the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, to evolve a savings policy and program aimed at encouraging Nigerians of all economic status to actively participate in the capital market. This is with a view to unlocking the vast potential in the market. Ahmed stated this when the management of the Nigerian Exchange Limited, NGX, led by its Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Timi Popoola, paid a courtesy call in Abuja. While acknowledging the commitment of NGX management, which culminated in the mutualization of the exchange, Ahmed called on them to leverage on technology and innovations which could ease the processes of trading on the exchange and ensure that ordinary citizens could participate in the capital markets. In furtherance of the objective, the minister stated that the federal government had directed SEC to marshal out a savings policy and program that would encourage citizens of all economic standing to actively participate in Nigerian capital markets as a means of unlocking the potential in the market, while assuring the Minister of NGX support to this administration's efforts in making Nigeria a destination for foreign investment, as well as attracting investors. Popoola sought for a reduction on companies' income tax from 25% to 20%, among others, arguing that this would ultimately attract more taxes to government. Responding to the request for a reduction of various taxes relating to the capital market, the minister declared that such requests would be treated on their individual merits, stating that the request had come at an appropriate time when the ministry is working on the Finance Bill 2021. Our last story on Business Roundup says the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, LCCI, has said pressures and foreign exchange scarcity has significantly impacted the operating cost of businesses in Nigeria. The president, LCCI, Mrs. Toki Mabugunji, said this on Thursday in Lagos at a roundtable on the ease of doing business. She noted the efforts by the federal government through the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council towards eliminating constraints and bottlenecks to doing business in the country, as well as the implementation of some regulatory reforms. According to her, access to domestic and international financing opportunities, particularly among small and medium enterprise, is still limited despite the accommodative policy stance of the Central Bank of Nigeria. She said just a few SMEs benefited from the low interest rate regime in the previous year. Responding, the special advisor to the president on ease of doing business, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, said PBEC would continue to champion predictable and consistent policies towards positioning the government as a partner for business and investment, not as a competitor or inhibitor of economic growth. Right now, let's go to the parallel market and find what the Naira trades against major currencies in the world. That's it on Business Roundup. We'll take a break and return to talk business. Please stay tuned. Thank you for staying with us. Now we will begin looking at digital infrastructure. So I have an economist here in the studio with me. His name is Destiny Owobo. Thank you, Destiny, for coming to the show today.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
It's my pleasure. Good afternoon to you. And we also have someone joining us via Zoom, a digital expert. His name is Clement Adili. Thank you, Clement, for coming on the show. All right, now, so let's begin by understanding what digital infrastructure is. And Clement, we'll begin with you. What is digital infrastructure and what does it entail?
Okay, so first, digital infrastructures, just the same way you look at the normal physical infrastructure, digital infrastructures are the things that we need to put in place or the setups that convey technology and not just anyhow technology. We're talking about the internet-based technology, and that helps us carry out business and whatever that makes our life easy in real time.
Okay. All right. Now, Destiny, what? You would agree with me that for this to be possible, for this call to work, you would need internet. You would need not just internet. You need the software base and all that for this connection to be carried out. So that's for this to happen, you need infrastructure to ensure that this is possible. So that's a quick example of what digital infrastructure is. Okay. All right, now, Destiny, in our present world, why is digital infrastructure important to companies, especially digital firms?
Yeah, what we are used to in the world before now is what we call brick and mortar structures.
Okay.
Like buildings, roads, bridges, freight ships and things like that. But the world has gone in the last 40, 50 years. Most of what we see in the world now is going digital, electronic, computer, throughout. So digital infrastructure is, like my expert there said, is a whole network, an ecosystem of infrastructures or assets that a country needs to have for technology to be able to, people to be able to innovate within the ecosystem. For example, data centers, security network systems, broadband, fiber optic cables, mobile technology, telecoms equipment, a lot of bandwidth technology, many of these things. So a country has to have them before entrepreneurs and innovators can innovate within the ecosystem. For instance, before you have internet in your country, you must have what we call an internet service provider. So it's part of the infrastructure we're talking about. And then you must have networks that are capable of where people can exchange data. You must have data centers where people can store and save data. You must have cloud services. You must have a lot of many important systems, which will allow people to come and invest within the value chain. Infrastructure is a big word, but there are several aspects. It's like you can't create goods and services in a modern economy without having road transport, air transport, without having security facilities and things like that. So the digital world also has its own network of systems, which needs to be in place before you can engage into production within the ecosystem of the digital world.
All right. Now, Clement, back to you. Where are we as a country as far as having digital infrastructure is concerned?
With all honesty, I'd say that we haven't evolved into adapting it fully. Like my co-speaker said just now. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of being deliberate as government, as a system or a society. So I would say that we are still late adopters of digital infrastructure. You would agree with me that, like I was being modest to the start, I would say we still have more than 50% of our work still done mechanically and without any help from the digital space. That's the itself is tells us that we are still like way behind on times and what currently exists and what can be obtainable for us.
Okay, so knowing where we are, it's obvious that we are challenged in certain areas. Now, how do we address some of these challenges so that businesses can leverage on digital infrastructure to move forward?
Yes, it's about vision. It's about a strategic blueprint. Like we always say, like I said, where do we need to be in the digital space in the next 10 to 20 years? A policy should be written. Because like you said, it's an evolutionary process. So you need to plan how much of your job you need to move online by 20 this, 20 that. And that requires you to make investment in digital infrastructure to be able to do that. Because as we say now, if you check universities all over the world, because of this COVID disaster, most of them are beginning to do hybrid programs, online and offline programs. Now what that means is that there are still 50% both ways. In the next 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 years, most universities will totally move online. Because one, it is cost efficient. You are able to reach millions of people online, and then you're able to reduce cost per unit of running the program. I think in economics, it's just basic common sense that cost will be reduced over the long run. And if that is going to happen, the best way to ease that cost is to go digital. For example, the physical world has a space problem. Now this space problem is limited by our brick and mortar walls, but the digital world can be expanded indefinitely, as long as you have data centers to capture all the data. I'll give you an example. Facebook, just imagine if Facebook was a building. Facebook has 2.8 or 2.9 billion people inside that system. Now try and imagine a house that can house 2.8 billion people.
We're talking about countries accommodating.
In fact, you can imagine that the population of the world is just about 7.5 billion. Now Facebook houses 1/3 of the people alive. That's because it's a digital world.
Okay.
We're able to compress massive billions of amounts of information into small systems in a simple computer, and then data centers handle the rest. So what we, like I said, we must have a national policy looking ahead. It's not something you just jump up. It's like investing in roads, power plants, and things like that. You need to set up what are the critical infrastructure, which is important in generating the support structures, the businesses that will come and invest within it. The first very critical thing is broadband, the amount of information you can carry in a country.
Okay.
2, we need data centers. We need security, because while you are trying to invest in such things, people need to trust the system for it to operate. If I need to send money to somebody anywhere in Nigeria and I suspect that a fraudster is able to get my passwords and things like that, I may not trust that system. I will still prefer the brick and mortar system. So infrastructure is there. What about software? We need programmers, we need software designers, we need software architects. We need people who understand the workings of the system. So the federal government should be first of all, invest in the physical infrastructure. It has a physical component. 2, it has a mental component, the part that has to do with creating softwares, creating innovation within the system.
Okay.
Somebody invented the internet, somebody created the HTTP system by which the world uses now. So we should be able to tap into because most of what we are going to create in digital infrastructure is already available. What we just need to do is to connect Nigeria to the whole global space.
Okay.
So that our innovators can create softwares within this space and work around the ecosystem. So that requires planning, strategic planning. And so that is why we need leaders who are compliant with the modern needs. Okay? When leaders still think about 1950 and 1960s model of solving problems, then we are not going to have problems. Like we are talking about this cattle ranching problem. These problems have been solved. They've been solved. There are technologies that can handle mapping, geo-mapping systems. We can map the entire country, and then we can map areas where grazers can operate. We don't need traditional maps and things like that again. Why do you think America sent space shuttles to go and set up a data system abroad? Up. The whole world has been mapped as I speak to you right now. We have digital maps more detailed than any map you can find anywhere in an analog system. What we need to do is to set up a satellite in space too and find a way of getting our own data, because the data that is gotten from Europe or America is for their use. We need to have a way of getting this same data and interpreting it according to our own peculiarities.
So there's no aspect of life that cannot be enhanced by digital means?
Every aspect of life is becoming digital. Every aspect of life, yes.
Now, Clement, in doing business, what are those aspects of the digital world that today's business person can take advantage of to become more productive?
Okay, so like my speaker said, you talked about data. Now, one of the issues I would say that we have here in Nigeria, because like this is something I get to work with every day, is the fact that we have bulk of the data we have, we use as people are not sourced by ourselves. We get them from external sources, which is like saying define us for having other people define what we have, telling us what we have, and then we get the data. So for us as a country, we have a good internet penetration of mobile phone users, right?
Yes.
However, that's not converting into what's it called, the day-to-day implementation or the day-to-day running of businesses here. So, like you talked about, having intentional infrastructures built and then planned such that it is sustainable over time. One of the things that this can help us do, take for example data. Now, one of the things that we could do with, data is usable in every aspect. Healthcare, education, media, whatever it is. Now, as a business person, you would understand that you cannot do a lot without knowing who your customers are, what their behaviors are, and then how do I serve them better? in spite of all the limitations that we have as people. Now, take for example, you have a business, and then you come up with a brilliant idea. That brilliant idea is supposed to bring income to the country. It's supposed to bring income to your local state. And but with the restrictions you may have based on location and all those things, that may hamper it. And in truth, a lot of us are aware of the fact that we have social media and all that. Social media is just one side of what the digital space can do, or one side of what the digital infrastructure or whatever can do. Because we have a lot of our young people on social media, and that's not all there is. You know, a country like India gets a lot of its income because of its outsourcing programs. Because lots of them do jobs for people remotely, and that brings a lot of money into the country. You know, that in itself should be encouraged. That in itself should be. We should look for ways to make our young people engage and want to, seek to bring more the possibilities of that happening. Those are two things that I think if we can start off there, I believe that we could move forward a lot when it comes to data, when it comes to digital infrastructure.
Okay. Now, where do we start in getting more people involved in the digital world? One of the stories that we took on Business Random shows that as of 2018, a research done shows that just 40% of Nigerians are on digital platforms,
yes,
and by extension on financially inclusive in digital platforms created to enable financial operations.
Yes.
So how do we get that done, particularly when it concerns the people in the rural area?
Yeah.
Can education take care of this? What about those who are out of school already?
Yeah, well, you see, like I said, what government can do is, first of all, like I said, have that plan. If we say 40%.
As of 2018, assuming that by now it has increased beyond 40%.
Not significantly, because like I said, most of our population are illiterate. Most of our population, we must forget that.
Okay.
And when we have this, because of our education level, most people just think, when you think about digital, the first thing that comes to people's mind is computer.
Okay.
Please, the computer is just one product in the digital space. Okay, there are aspects. So just try it. When you see a typical Nigerian, when they see computer, it's like a complex device to them. They think there's something inside there. It's a world. There's a world out there. We have programmers. We have designers. You can design a car now and sell it online, and then people will pay you just based on your design.
Okay.
We have people, we have the security system. There are people, their job is just to purge systems. For example, if you have this place connected to the internet, somebody wants to breach the data, there are companies in this world. Their job is just managing security.
Okay.
And that is also online too.
Okay.
So there are aspects. So like we said, education is very important. And awareness. We need to demystify the computer. You know, when computers came to this country, it came like it was a complex thing.
Okay.
It's not.
We'll break that complex thing after this break.
Yeah.
We'll be right back. Again, thank you for being there. Now, before we went on that break, we were talking about having more people involved in the digital world so that businesses especially can take advantage of digital infrastructure.
Yeah.
Now back to you.
So I was saying something. I said we may not be able to do much about people who are above 60 and above. It's difficult to correct a bent fish, like they say.
Okay.
So, but we can do a lot with our younger ones.
Okay.
We can start introducing technology courses right from primary and kindergarten.
Okay.
You know, it can be communicated. One thing about human beings, the mind is malleable. You can simply work with it.
Okay.
So if people are exposed to digital language right from childhood, they can adopt it as they grow older. You know, that's why I say we must have a 10, 15-year policy.
Okay.
Starting from kindergarten and primary school, we should need to rework our what they call it, curriculum to include digital courses.
Okay.
For example, simple things. You know, one little boy, 9 years old boy, works for Google. He earns about 200 million every year, and is an expert. He's a digital expert. Now, how does that happen? His father was a programmer, and so he learned most of these skills before he turned 6.
Okay.
So children they catch things easily. So we must estimate how many children do we have between the ages of 5 and 10. Then we integrate these courses in little doses to them when they are young. So as they get to 15, 16, they are already digitally compliant. They can go into the ecosystem and find a place to pitch their tent. We can't do, a man that is 60 years old, you want to bring him to the digital world, the probability of bringing him to the digital world is very, because people have what we call a habit, a ratchet effect. When you're already used to a certain word, to go and learn a new word at a certain age, it's difficult. But you can do that with a child who is meeting the world for the first time.
Okay.
You know, I'll just give you a short story. My little brother has a little boy. Okay. And if you see the way the boy plays with his Android phone, you'll be surprised. As an adult, I can't do that. He knows all the games, he knows all the programs inside the phone.
Because he was born into it.
He was born into the system. Okay. So I think that's how you introduce people to it. In the next 10, 15 years, Nigeria will catch up.
So having a long-term plan.
Yes, a long-term plan.
Is the way to go.
Yeah.
On a final note, what transformation would embracing digital infrastructure do for the Nigerian economy, Clement?
Okay, so I think I'll take up from where you stopped.
Okay.
I feel like you know, taking people from take for example a young child and take someone, a child in Singapore, you know, who grows up knowing all this and gets to interact with the machines and understands programming languages or whatnot. That informs how they accept technology, and that informs how they see or perceive it. You know, for us, if we are able to first off, you know, I mean, start with the government and then go in that home. If we take it up as something, you know, here's the thing. You know, technology is not going anywhere. In fact, digital technology isn't going anywhere. It's here to stay. And then if we take it as something, you know, we need to inculcate in our future, in our next generation, you know. So, and then from the moment when they're in kindergarten and then they're up to primary school, I mean, by the time they're in secondary school, many of them wanted to, you know, jump in on this, knowing that it's a possibility, and there's so much to be done with this. And I believe that, first of all, there is to be made by the country because of human resource. And then you're talking about the citizenry. If we export the technology as experts, you know, to the outside world, I believe, you know, Nigeria will be where it is in the next 20 years because the kind of solutions will be moving out, so churning out.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Clement, for that. So we do hope that we get to a point in Nigeria where we do not just consume innovations as far as technology is concerned. We'll begin to also export our own innovations and earn from it. Thank you, Clement, for being on the show. And thank you, Destiny. We'll take a break, and when we return, we'll be looking at offshore banking. All right, if you just tuned in, this is Business This Week, and we're talking business. This time around, we're looking at offshore banking. I've been joined by an ex-banker, Olatuji Badru. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and we've had Destiny over with us since we began the show today. So let's look at offshore banking. First, what is offshore banking? What does it entail?
Offshore banking simply is a relationship that it exists between a company or individual with a financial institution outside their place of residence. In other words, the bank has international banking license, and the depositor is not in that country where this bank has that international banking license, where it's operating. Okay. So the person is now having an account in that bank, far from a different jurisdiction, from a different country. Okay. So we call it offshore banking. Okay. And there are some banks, even in Nigeria here, they have offshore license like UBA, I know of UBA, I know of First Bank, I know of Guarantee, I know of Access Bank. They have offshore banking license, which give them power to establish a bank outside Nigeria, and they are operating it different from the way they operate in Nigeria here, with the local currency.
Okay. Now, there's a new development. The National Assembly is moving for the CBN to grant permission for offshore banking so that Forex can be available without an eviction. What's your take on that?
Yes, it's part of a master plan. Like we said, to develop a country, you follow two parts, the evolutionary part or the revolutionary part. Now, if you want to jumpstart it, what most countries do, they do what we call export processing zones or free trade zones. You know, it's just a quick accelerator program to encourage investors to come to your country, operate according to relaxed rules, and then jumpstart the industrialization process. So currently, Nigeria has about 44 EPZs. What it means is you carve out a geographical area in your country, and it's like you are creating an artificial world inside your country to insulate these investors from the overall rules that operate within the country. So when you produce within this EPZ or this processing zone, you only pay taxes, but you don't pay tariffs, you don't pay all those costs, especially if within that place, the laws, the total rules, business rules do not apply the way it applies outside. The reason because of that, because when investors are coming, investors are shopping around the world looking for places where they're going to get higher returns with minimum cost. So when you have a place like that, it encourages investors to bring their capital to that location and then operate there because they are safe insulated from the overall macroeconomic condition of that place. And then, for example, you have heard about the Lekki Free Trade Zone. It has encouraged billions of dollars to flow to that area. That's why Dangote was able to set up a refinery there, because the carrots in that area are better.
The incentives.
The incentives are there that encourage them to operate. So when you produce within that place, you do not pay those taxes and other levies and others which are charged outside the zone. So it pours a lot of capital to the place, and after some time, we believe that the processes both will be replicated, and then overall, it creates more employment and a lot of money is moved. Now, the problem, how does offshore banking relate to this?
Yes.
Like I told you, offshore banking also has, they are Siamese twins. They are like relatives.
Okay,
like
they go together.
They go together. Offshore banking also creates this kind of security for investors. One, it has certain benefits. If you have an account in offshore banking, you can have an agreement with the bank to keep your identities private without the government knowing. You can also withdraw your money without any information. For example, if you put a certain amount of money in Zenith Bank or any bank that doesn't have the offshore protection, and you want to withdraw money, there's a point you try to take money cash from. And then they have to signal the CBN, and then CBN will come and investigate.
When it exceeds a certain
EFCC and others.
A certain amount.
A certain amount,
allowed.
because there are rules that govern these deposits and things like that. So, but in the offshore banking, you can have protection, asset protection. They can charge interest rates depending on the way they like. Here in Nigeria, in traditional banking system, the rules of operation are defined by the Banking Act, BOFIA Act, and the normal banking rules that they operate under the CBN guidelines. But this offshore banking, they can operate everywhere. In fact, for tax purposes, for instance, too, most people see offshore areas, when you say an offshore, like there are island nations where people go and put money inside and they run from taxes.
They are considered tax havens.
Yes, tax havens. Most these people, like I told you, they want minimum cost. So they want a place where most of this, they can dodge these government rules and still make a lot of returns. So it's like giving them the opportunity to do that. Like I told you, if you want to get foreign exchange now from the central bank, you need to follow the rules. Central bank has its own policy on who to give foreign exchange to. They have these rationing programs.
Yes,
they
and for what?
Yes, and for what? So there are certain, you cannot get foreign exchange to import certain things to this country. Okay. But if you give licenses to offshore banks, they can source foreign exchange from the international market.
So that makes Forex available
to those people who operate within the foreign, the offshore space system, and the EPZ space, things like that. So they are simply allowing them to be able to, because the CBN can complain that there is no foreign exchange, and they can sell at the official rate which you see quoted. But in the offshore market, you can have access to international, you can get your foreign exchange anyhow you like, anytime you want. It makes things seamless for you. So it allows, it's like a carrot. In the short run, it doesn't look as if it is benefiting you. because the government is looking away, so to speak, and allowing you to operate at a certain rule. But the long-term project is that you succeed, you bring a lot of capital into the country, and after some time, this thing is replicated, and then the economy catches up. Okay. It's like losing in the short run to get the big fish in the long run. So this secrecy, EPZs and things like this, encourage industrialists, businessmen to flow billions into your country, trying to boycott your regular economy, and then insulate themselves from the negativities of the environment. And in the long run, the economy benefits because they are bringing serious capital, bringing employment, bringing cash, bringing investment, bringing technology, technology transfer, and a lot of things that come with it. So that's how offshore banking plays a role there. They prefer, they enjoy banking in a, for example, if there's a government policy to repatriate, there are policies on repatriation of profits, for instance.
Yes.
Now, these policies, if you invest in Nigeria, and then the government, for instance, want to freeze your assets, government can simply ground the company by freezing the assets through
so you
traditional
cannot
banking
repatriate your
system.
phone back to
Yes,
your
but
country.
a bank that has international license, the government of Nigeria cannot freeze the assets of its customers.
So your phones are free for you to do whatever you
Yes,
like.
you can do whatever
with
you
it.
like to do, as long as you operate within the rules that operate there. So government cannot just give an instruction to an offshore bank to freeze an account of a person who has an account with them. Sometimes you may not even have the information of whether they have an account with them or not. So there's this secrecy and some transparency.
All right. Now, as good as this sounds, what's the downside of having offshore banking operations in Nigeria?
There are, they say every advantage, they say a disadvantage. There are some disadvantages of having offshore banking.
Okay.
One of the major disadvantages when there is offshore banking, it will create room for what people are afraid of, drug trafficking money, money laundering, and illegal investment flow or money flow. The reason is that, like he said just now, those offshore banking is not under regulation or strict scrutiny.
Okay.
So because of that, people can push in money without filling the form. If you go to the ordinary bank now, if you want to pay up to 10 million, 20 million, there's a column there for you to fill the source of your income. Yes. In offshore banking, they don't do that. They what we call secrecy legislation. Even if you like the Swiss Banking Act of 1934, it made it clear that on no account, that's a confidentiality, privacy, that on no account should you release information concerning the customer's identity, as well as if it is a corporate account, a shareholder's name must not be disclosed. So with that now, that's why you see people go to Switzerland. Then the same thing is happening in Hong Kong, even Singapore. People rush there. Then all these Caribbean islands, they are there, Bermuda, they are there. Cayman Islands, Isles of Man, there's an island like that. People are put there, Panama, Bahamas. So they are, because, like we said just now, tax havens. And because of that, there's little or no tax on all these things, and their transactions are not restricted. They are allowed to use their money. Equally, those people who travel for pleasure, who also work, they have access, easy access to money and even international investment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, will having offshore banking have any negative impact on the normal banking system that is in operation in Nigeria, the regular banking system?
It should not have. The reason why it should not have a negative effect, when we talk of bank now, giving out money, giving out loans, bank don't have their own money. They give out. It's the customer's money, the money deposited. They know that these people will not come immediately to come and collect the money. So they use it. And all the customers will not come at the same time. So when you have offshore banking and there's huge foreign deposit, so it will also affect positively this our foreign exchange crunch. Right now we are facing very scarcity of foreign exchange. That is why you see the value of naira is falling. Diving. But if there's availability of foreign currency, then the supply will not be affected adversely. So there will be sufficient supply. no supply and demand. So it will not make the price to be stable and go down. But right now, the demand is higher than the supply. So by having a foreign currency, foreign this thing, it will help in no measure. And you also know you have individual accounts and corporate accounts. Those corporate accounts on offshore banking, they are going to establish industries, generate employment, social corporate responsibility will be there. So it's a win-win of something.
Okay, now
I don't see any.
I know you want to add to that, but before you do that, given that the National Assembly is asking the CBN to grant permission, do you think that at the end of the day, it will be granted by the CBN?
Yeah, it is. The government is optimistic about the benefits to the economy. Like I told you, it is the government that created these free trade zones. I know recently we signed the African Free Trade Agreement, which says that trade should be existing between all the 54 African states, I mean, in a seamless manner. What we are focusing on, there are billions of dollars flowing around the world. We want to get a large chunk of that. And sequel to that, contingent on that is the ability to pool these resources. The reason why most people do not come to a country to invest are numerous. One, you don't have the right infrastructure outside. And to provide it for a whole country of Nigeria's size may be very expensive. But you can create a small place in the country and create 90% of the infrastructure needed. You know, it's like you want to do something big, but you can't afford it, so you start with a small project. So in the EPZ zones, like I told you, we have 44. Government provides 90% of all the infrastructure needed within the zone to encourage these people to come and invest. You know, you want to set up a business that requires so much power. If you depend on the power from Edo State, for instance, we don't have that kind of infrastructure. But you can create one in Uselu. You can create a typical generating set that powers the hub. Yeah, the hub to allow them to come and tap into that resource. I mean, that capital there. That's number one. Number two, like I said, if you want businessmen to come to your country, let me give you, if you incorporate a company in America, for instance, the tax rate is between 40 to 50%. So, but there's a law in America that says that if an American company is a company that is headquartered in the US, okay, so companies, this is what they do.
They headquarter in America.
Yes, what they do, they go and open a company in the Cayman Islands, register it there as headquarter, and call the US one the branch. Okay. We call that tax avoidance.
Tax evasion.
No, tax evasion is a crime. Tax avoidance. So we find a way to dodge the taxes, and that saves companies billions of dollars in taxes. They're simply playing that simple trick. So if you create these hubs and allow offshore banking to exist, so people who want to take advantage of the loopholes will put money inside the economy, and in the long run, it will benefit the economy. Okay,
on a final note, is operating an offshore account limited to big companies and individuals with so much money, or is something anyone can do?
No, though, if you look at offshore banking, it takes a lot of money.
Okay.
But you see that the wealthy people, those people who are wealthy, they are the one more involved in this thing.
So
because you look at the high
categories of persons that can operate offshore banking. All right, so that's all time will permit us today on the show. We began talking about digital infrastructure, and then we just talked about offshore banking. Thank you, Olatutu Badru, for being on the show. Thanks again, Destiny, for being on the show.
Thank you.
That's the size of the show today. My name is Blessing Eyiche. Stay safe.